Hello, welcome back. Let's just continue.
Chapter 4, Shinsu Hitachi. Izuku was barely able to pay attention to the teacher's lesson as he felt the anger rolling off of Kiken in waves. Even with Nana being a buffer for it, Izuku knew he was in for it if he didn't avoid Kiken at all costs. The Midoriya boy had even gone to the lengths of hiding in a bathroom across the school during lunch despite Nana's prodding to get lunch. Luckily, she didn't force him to explain what the situation was, but Izuku knew it was only a matter of time. Finally, when the last bell of the day rang, Izuku didn't even bother putting his stuff into his backpack before booking it out of there. "Don't you run from me, shitty Deku!" Bakugo shouted venomously, but Izuku wouldn't stop. Izuku ran as fast as his legs could carry him out of the school with Bakugo's stomps right on his heels. One thing for sure, Bakugo had way more stamina than Izuku. Especially since he had only been working out for a few days. But despite the burning need for oxygen and the ache in his legs telling him to slow down, Izuku kept going. "Don't worry, Izuku. Try to lose him in the alley." Izuku did, ducking down the closest alleyway and nearly hugging the dumpster. His heart was rabbiting out of his chest, but he covered his mouth so Kiken wouldn't hear him breathing. Feeling like he was hiding from a murderer, Izuku could only watch as Bakugo ran right past the dumpster, allowing Izuku to duck out and run the way he came. He would end up taking the long way home, but it was worth it to avoid Kiken's wrath. When Izuku finally felt safe enough to stop running, his knees were shaking and he slumped over gasping for breath. "You won't get air like that, Izuku," Nana chided gently. "Stand up straight and put your hands on your head. Take deep breaths." She started to count out every breath for Izuku and he found it easy to close his eyes and follow along. Finally, when he felt like his lungs weren't going to collapse, Izuku opened his eyes and dropped his arms. His relief was only temporary as he saw a tired-looking boy with purple hair staring weirdly at him. Izuku wasn't afraid to admit that he shrieked a little, fight or flight response kicking in. This case, it was flight, and he took a few fleeted steps away before he realized it wasn't one of Bakugo's usual goons. In fact, this boy wasn't even wearing an Aldera Junior High uniform. "Geez, you look like shit. Who were you running from?" the boy asked, rolling his eyes. "Sorry, Han, I wasn't paying attention to him either. I was focused on helping you." Nana apologized and brushed against his hand. Someone from my school," Izuku answered lamely. If possible, the boy rolled his eyes even harder. "I figured. You know the uniform, do you get bullied often?" Izuku shrugged. Of course he did. Every day pretty much. But he wasn't sure how comfortable he was with explaining that to the other boy.
My quirk is mind control, by the way. So if I wanted, I can make you tell me anyways. The boy was facing the screen, but his eyes were on Zuko. If he was trying to be nonchalant, he was doing a super job, which made you wonder why he was talking to me at all. Izzy, but you go home to talk if you want to. Don't feel like you have to talk to this kid. Nana sounded concerned for him, and Zuko felt more under that.
"I'm okay." He tried to think to her. He wasn't really clear on how the telepathy link between them worked. "If you say so." The purple-haired boy seemed to be waiting on a response, but Izuku was too busy thinking of what his motive could be to notice. Admitting he had a mind control quirk was unexpected. He could be lying to be intimidating, but Izuku couldn't see what he would earn out of that. So Izuku assumed he was telling the truth. And even going so far as making Izuku answer the question was odd. But of course, he asked about bullying. Looking the kid over, Izuku could see how he seemed to hold a sense of forced relaxation. Like he was ready to bolt at the nearest second but didn't want Izuku to notice. "Do you get bullied often?" Izuku found himself asking out of nowhere. It was clear that the other boy didn't expect him to ask the question in return as his eyes widened minutely. But all at once the tension seemed to fall from his body. "Touché." The pair stood there on the sidewalk in awkwardness for a while. neither knowing what to say. Seeing as how I will probably never see you again, yeah. I get bullied fairly often. People think I'm going to be a villain because of my quirk. He admitted calmly. As if it was a fact of life. Which made Izuku offended on his behalf. That's not fair. The world isn't fair. Touché. Izuku found himself responding, which brought a smirk to the boy's face. It was then Nana decided to speak up in Izuku's ear. How about you invite him out to a late lunch? You need to eat and he looks like he needs a friend. Without meaning to, Izuku nodded, which made the boy give him another weird look. Quickly, Izuku spoke. I skipped lunch. Do you want to? Well, Izuku wasn't sure how to ask without it sounding awkward, and it seemed to show on his face. Hey, do you want to get lunch together? The kid asked, nodding off to the side. There's a ramen shop a little way this way. We can eat and share sob stories. Izuku nodded right away. Yeah, I'd like that. My name is Midoriya Izuku. Shinu Hitachi. _____. It was a short walk to the ramen shop. They mostly kept silent as the bell jingled upon their entry. Walking up to the counter, they ordered and paid separately, with Izuku meeting Shinsu at a table in the back. Do you eat here often? Izuku asked as he sat down. I've never really stopped by here. Yeah, sometimes. The owners here are good people. Another silence spread between them, and despite the previous plan of sharing sob stories, neither seemed inclined to speak. But Izuku figured that it was his turn at least. I was running from someone named Kakerm. Bakugu. We've known each other since we were little. Shinsu hummed as he traced his finger through the condensation on his cup. You used to be friends. Yeah, I was a late bloomer with my quirk. Very late. Like less than a week ago acquired a quirk. Of course Izuku didn't voice those thoughts. Ah. That'll do it. I never stayed in one place enough to get long-term friends. Or friends in general. People either wanted to know me for my quirk. I guess they thought I'd make people do things for them. Shinsu shrugged, not meeting Izuku's eye. So your parents move around a lot? Shinsu shook his head, and the melancholic look in his eyes told Izuku not to press too hard for details. Well, what school do you go to? Homeschooled for now. Thinking of applying to UA though. Oh. Me too. Their food soon arrived, and there was a lull in conversation as they dug in, Izuku more so than Shinsu. Nana warned him about eating too fast, which made Izuku pause. You've shared a lot with me and I haven't shared much back. Izuku was nervous as he placed his bowl and chopsticks down. Don't feel like you have to share, Izuku. You just tell him what makes you comfortable. Izuku nodded once more, which caused Shinsu to quirk a brow at him. Well, like you said, we may never see each other again, so I don't really have anything to lose. I mean, the worst that can happen is that you don't believe me. This time it was Shinsu who put his bowl and chopsticks down. You don't have to share if it upsets you. I want to, is that okay? Izuku asked because of course he didn't want to burden Shinsu with that kind of information if it would make him uncomfortable. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff in my time. I don't think I can be surprised. Oh, just you wait. Nana scoffed as she leaned in close, causing Izuku's left side to warm up. Izuku took a deep steadying breath. I just got my quirk. On Friday. Shinsu's eyes widened as he immediately leaned forward. Friday? Why yet? I jumped off a roof. It was pretty high up, I wasn't really in the best mindset. Izuku's voice was so quiet he wondered how Shinsu could hear him, but he seemed to have no trouble doing so as he looked on. But Izuku refused to meet his eyes again, choosing instead to look at his bowl of ramen. Did you quirk? Did it save you? It took a moment, but Izuku shook his head slowly. It didn't save me. But, it brought me back. It brought you back. Shinsu sounded like he was on the edge of disbelief, and honestly Izuku couldn't blame him. Yeah, there was a spirit there. We kind of, I don't know, bonded. And I came back. No scratch on me. Izuku finally looked up and felt his stomach drop at the pinched look on Shinsu's face. I'm sorry, that was a lot to just tell you. I should go. Izuku stood up, glad that he had already paid at the counter, and went to turn to the door when his sleeve was grabbed tightly. Wait. I'm just processing. Just wait. Shinsu spat, letting Izuku go and sitting back in his seat. Izuku couldn't blame him. It sounded crazy to his own ears. Slowly, Izuku sat back down, picking up his bowl. He didn't go for a bite, just stirred his noodles around as he waited for Shinsu to speak again. Can you prove it? Not by, but the spirit? Can you prove ? Shinsu suddenly shuddered really hard, arms wrapping around himself, and Izuku felt warmth explode within him. It lasted only a split second, but when it subsided Shinsu looked him in the eyes with shock. Oh, okay. Yeah. Spirit. Nana. Izuku cried out, looking over to where her warmth had resettled. It's alright, Izuku. I didn't hurt him. I just passed through him a little bit. He's okay. Izuku shook his head with a sigh. I'm sorry, Shinsu. I didn't ask her to do that, she just did what I asked. Shinsu cut him off by raising his hand. I asked her to prove it. I'll be honest, that was pretty strange. And I think I'm a bit tapped out on sharing sob stories for now. Izuku lowered his head with a nod. He understood, of course. I know we said we'd never see each other again, and that was the whole point of this, but, give me your phone, Shinsu said, holding his hand out. Izuku was confused but did so anyway, watching as the boy typed away at it and handed it back. Looking at the screen, he could see his contacts displayed with Shinsu's name added in. Text me when you get home. If you want. Who knows, maybe we can make a habit of these sob story ramen days. Shinsu finished his ramen soon after and stood from his seat. I should head home now. But, text me if you want. The boy was gone before Izuku could respond, and he was left sitting there across from an empty bowl. That went well. Nana tried being positive, causing Izuku to sigh. He finished off his ramen quickly and left with Nana on his heels. He was silent for the walk home, suddenly feeling very emotionally drained. He needed a nap. He could skip his workout for the day and pick up tomorrow. Nana didn't seem to have any protests about it either, so he figured it was alright. He barely remembered to text the number Shinsu gave him, telling him he made it home fine before he fell into bed for a well-deserved nap. Curling up, he felt Nana's warmth petting his hair before the sleep overtook him.
Wait, 45? What the fuck? I didn't notice that. $17 would be great. Basically, in the win one was mostly in the quirk. We're getting one for 16 or 17. I know that. Wait a minute, no, past that. After that, 23 or 20, 23 or 24, basically.
Chapter 5, Training Montage. Izuku started throwing himself headfirst into his workouts. Every day after school he'd run home and change out of his uniform before going down to the beach and picking out more trash. His jogs and workouts were slowly helping him build muscle and stamina. Bakugo, as much as the exploding blonde wanted to deny it, evading him was becoming easier and easier. Izuku started to keep a map of all the paths he took home from school and kept them random. Sometimes he would even meet up with Shinsu on the way home and they would take a break to eat lunch. His friendship with Shinsu was just starting out, but it was like their sob story exchange helped strengthen their foundation. Shinsu explained the discrimination he felt growing up in the foster care system. Izuku really felt for him, but it appeared Shinsu was finally in a semi-permanent foster family. He didn't share details, but Izuku could see him growing happier as the days passed. Somewhat losing the dark bags under his eyes, which in turn helped him become more perceptive. So much so, he started picking up on Izuku's growing muscles and even height. Shinsu still towered over him, but the gap was closing more and more as the months passed. Izuku, maybe you should invite Shinsu to help you clean the beach, Nana suggested one day. It was a decent idea. They both decided to try for UA and both their quirks weren't physically based. They could both use the help. But still, asking Shinsu to help pick up trash. At least offer. I think it would help you both. Nana's voice was understanding, but Izuku could tell she wouldn't pressure him to ask. There's still a fair amount of trash left and it would be easier for both of you to pick it up in time for the UA exam. That night, Izuku texted Shinsu about it. To Shinsu, hey, I have a question. To Midoriya, about. To Shinsu, you know my workout routine? Well, I've been picking up the trash on Dagaba Beach. To Midoriya, that's been you? My foster parents have been talking about it. To Shinsu, cheaper than a gym membership. But would you like to help me? We can both work out for the UA exams, and taking bags up to the recycling center can get us a few hundred yen each. To Midoriya, I'll have to ask my foster parents about it, but I'm sure they'll say yes. When do you want to meet? To Shinsu, tomorrow morning after breakfast. I usually go pretty early and stay until lunch. Just join me when you can. To Midoriya, gotcha. See you then. Izuku felt excitement bubble up inside himself as he ate that night. His mom seemed to pick up on his mood as she passed him a second bowl of katsudon. What's got you so excited, sweetie? She asked, pushing one of his curls behind his ear. I made a friend. And I think he's going to help me clean up the beach. Izuku explained after he swallowed his mouth full. Something about the way his quirk worked made him so hungry all the time. Or maybe it was the constant workouts. It was another thing that made him grateful for the extra cash that came with recycling. His mom loved cooking, but he didn't want to eat them out of house and home constantly. He ate light for breakfast, handled his own lunch, and came home to a hearty dinner. It was a good arrangement. After dinner, he took some time researching the entrance exams of UA under Nana's encouragement. She wasn't sure if they were the same as when she was a student and knew it would help with Izuku's anxiety. She was right, of course. He always felt better after he could make a plan. It seemed, however, UA kept the technicalities of their exams under wraps. All he was able to find was that there would be an academic exam with reading, writing, and math portions. Then later there would be a physical portion where they would be allowed to use their quirks. They would have targets to apprehend depending on the point values, and they would have 10 minutes to do as much as they could, and they were to treat it as an actual villain situation. Izuku's quirk would be effectively useless. Running his hands down his face, Izuku pulled out his personal quirk journal as if he would discover some new factor right then. Of course, there was nothing. But Nana placed a hand on his back gently. Izuku, honey. You'll do great. I know it. You were destined to be a hero. Izuku hoped she was right. UA was his dream. He wanted to be a hero. He needed to be a hero. He had no other plan. Nana comforted him as much as she was able as he curled up in bed early that night. Her confidence in him was helpful, and he fell asleep that night thinking that maybe his quirk wouldn't be completely useless. After all, with his personal cheering squad, there was no way he could lose hope. ______. The next morning, Izuku woke up, ate, and left as usual in the early morning hours to start his jog. His jog was more of a run now as he found the stamina to run faster for longer periods of time. By the time he came around Dagaba Beach, he had barely broken a sweat and there was no sign of Shinsu yet. That was fine. Izuku knew he was crazy if he suspected the sleep-deprived boy to wake up early. What did surprise him was the brand new looking truck parked right at the entrance. Walking up, there was nobody around it, but Izuku saw a piece of paper taped to the window. "Good day, child. I've noticed your work at the beach and I admire your tenacity. I don't know how much you care to hear this from me, but I'm proud of you. I would like to get together and speak to you about what happened when we met. Not now, of course. But whenever you feel ready. For now, feel free to use this truck to pile on any broken appliances or larger items you can't fit into a trash bag. I'll have it emptied out every day for you. A.M. Izuku stared at the note for a while before tearing it off the window so Shinsu couldn't find it. "Izuku, are you alright?" Nana asked him gently and Izuku smiled slightly. "I'm fine, Nana. I don't think I'm ready to talk to him yet." He pocketed the note and slipped his gloves on. "You don't have to talk to him if you don't want to. It's whenever you feel like it. And I won't leave your side at all." Nana spoke truthfully. Izuku hummed as he grabbed a trash bag and started gathering. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. But I may not be able to answer." "Right, privacy. Well, why would you stay with me?" Izuku asked suddenly. Nana paused. "What do you mean?" "Well, you were with All Might first, right? Why stay with me if you could go back to him? I know you aren't mad at him." Izuku worked in silence as Nana stayed quiet for a little longer. In fact, he only heard her speak as he was sliding a microwave into the truck bed. "I am mad at him," Nana said quietly. "He took his frustration out on you. A child. He's an adult and he should know better. Even if you didn't jump off that building, Izuku, I would still be upset. But even if I wasn't angry with him, I would still stay with you." "Why?" Izuku stressed as he took a break. "Why am I that important?" "You're always important," Nana told him immediately. "You are a human being and each human being is important and their life matters. Even villains, because at one point they were just little kids afraid of the dark." Izuku actually felt tears well up in his eyes at the emotion in her voice. He hadn't heard her this upset since she was crouched next to his body. "Nana. I had a son once." Izuku was cut short at the admission. "I had a son and I loved him with my whole entire being. And I gave him away because I didn't want All for One to find him and use him against me. I loved him but I let him go. I loved Toshinori too, like a son. I watched him grow into a hero. And I died so he could get away." She sounded like she was crying and Izuku wasn't far from it. I am sorry dash. Don't be. You would have to know eventually. But Izuku, Toshinori doesn't need me anymore. And he hasn't for a long time. But you do. I'm a mother. I need to be needed." Izuku felt her warmth wrap around him like a hug and he leaned into it as much as he could without falling over. He had a mom already. But Inko Midoriya could only do so much. And she had always been so distant after his quirklessness was revealed. Izuku was sure she didn't mean to. But that didn't change the fact that he needed her. "Midoriya." Izuku heard and his eyes snapped open to look at the noise. He has Shinsu standing awkwardly by the truck, a bag and a pair of gloves in his hands. "Are you okay?" Izuku stood up and wiped off his cheeks quickly with his shoulders. Yeah, I'm fine. Nana and I were just having a talk. It got a little emotional. Are you ready to help out?" Shinsu nodded slowly as he held up the bag. "My foster parents packed us some water and stuff. So Where do we start? Izuku held up his trash bag. Grab one and start filling it with any kind of plastics. I have the paper bag. We can do glass next and so on. Shinsu nodded and started working diligently. I had already been a few months since Izuku started, but he was amazed at the amount of bags they were able to collect by the time the sun hit its peak at noon. Shinsu even helped Izuku load an old mini fridge onto the truck. Meanwhile, Nana kept the encouragement going. Izuku had to play the middleman for when she spoke to Shinsu, but it went smoother as time went on. By the end, Shinsu didn't even seem weirded out when Izuku would randomly laugh. Instead of turning to wait to be let in on the joke without even having to ask. It was nice. Peaceful even. They walked to the recycling center together, somehow able to carry all their bags in one go. They took their pay and Izuku tried splitting it down the middle, but Shinsu insisted on only being paid for the bags he filled. After that, they split ways to go take showers before meeting at the ramen place to eat. They spoke about the UA exam a little, sharing nerves as they knew their quirks wouldn't help them much. At least, if the targets weren't human. They brightened the mood a little with talks about their hero costumes, Izuku saying he had no idea and Shinsu whispering that one of his foster parents was an underground hero and how he might take inspiration from him. Izuku smiled, offering to sketch out a design when the time came. All in all, they had a nice day together and parted ways with smiles. Izuku should have known it wasn't going to be that easy. I hope I handled the time skip smoothly. The entrance exams are coming in soon. Are you all excited? 3. Also, I decided to go ahead and make the Discord server. I've been answering comments as they come. Chapter 6. It was Izuku's fault. He knew it deep down. He was getting too complacent. He got sloppy. His walks home grew less and less random. Izuku figured that Bakugo had lost interest in him. Bakugo would keep spitting insults at him all the time. But it was always the same one, so Izuku was able to ignore it. Nana, however, always had spitting remarks she hurled at him for every threat and sharp word. She couldn't stand him. Even after Izuku tried explaining to her that Bakugo was hero material, but she practically spat as soon as he said it. Heroes don't act like that, Izuku. Heroes are supposed to help others. Being a hero has nothing to do with having a flashy quirk. Heroes don't believe they're better than anyone else. They're public servants. Nana went on a large rant and Izuku couldn't help but agree with her. But there was nothing he could do to stop Bakugo even if he wanted to. And boy did that make Nana even angrier. She was pretty upset that the teachers had ignored Bakugo's treatment of him for so long. Often giving the boy ammunition on top of it all. We're getting you into UA. And you're going to rise above everybody who kept you down. Everyone. She was passionate and her words always seemed to light a fire under Izuku. She was a hero. The best hero. The day his Nana merch came, the hero was practically cooing over him. The first thing he did was put her keychain on his backpack in the same spot the All Might keychain used to be. Her poster was displayed above his bed. Izuku's mom seemed intrigued at this new hero and Izuku stumbled his way through an explanation. She's an older hero. I found her while researching. She was brave. I wanna be brave like her. Oh, Izuku. Aw, son. Of course, you're gonna be brave like her. You'll be an amazing hero. His mother told him honestly, and it was the most confidence he had ever heard from her. Of course, the next day was when Bakugo finally caught up to him. He was walking over a small bridge. Route 3 of his circulating paths home. Bakugo surprised him. Grabbing him from behind. I got you now, shitty Deku. The boy hissed, shaking him hard enough to knock his backpack off his shoulder and onto the ground. Thought you could hide from me, huh? Izuku. No. Nana yelled for him as he was pushed against the railing of the bridge. Izuku could finally see Bakugo's face. And he was smiling. But it was feral. Practically shaking in his rage. You slipped up, Deku. I found you. What do you want from me, Kikin? I haven't done anything to you. Izuku tried pulling the boy's hands away, but an explosion made him recoil. Shut up. Bakugo pushed him harder and Izuku felt himself leaning farther back, his feet slipping for purchase on the rails. What are you doing, huh? Think you can gain some muscle and get into UA? You think it's that easy? No, Kikin. I don't. Just let me go. I haven't done anything. Just let me go. The smile disappeared from Bakugo's face as rage replaced it. Both hands grabbed the sides of his uniform and shook him even harder. You don't tell me what to do. The last shake was just enough to push Izuku over the railing. He fell almost in slow motion, watching the concrete rush up to meet him. He was afraid. What if his quirk was only a one-time save? What if this time he actually died? He didn't want to die. He wanted to live. He had a friend now. He had a goal. He had a mom and a mentor that cared about him and wanted him to succeed. He didn't want to fall. Nana, please, he thought as he closed his eyes. He didn't want to fall. He didn't want to die. Izuku didn't know what to expect. He could only hope there would be no pain. Maybe. If his mom was there, she could float him. Who was he kidding? She couldn't do that. Her quirk was only for smaller objects. But what if it was the mother's adrenaline thing Izuku heard about? Izuku, oh my, open your eyes. Did Nana sound excited? Izuku's eyes flicked open only to see concrete 2 inches away from his face. He screamed out in surprise only to realize that he wasn't moving. He wasn't even touching the ground. Looking up, he could see the bridge ledge he had fallen from with Bakugo's astonished look staring down at him. You're floating. Izuku, you're floating. Nana said in amazement. And as soon as the realization hit, Izuku felt himself fall the last 2 inches to the concrete. It ached a little, but it definitely wasn't as bad as it would have been. Deku. Bakugo ran to the stairs leading down to the underside of the bridge carrying Izuku's backpack. He was quick but suddenly stopped right before he got to Izuku. You aren't dead. You fell off the bridge. Izuku looked confused. Kikin, you pushed me off the bridge. Bakugo's eyes darkened suddenly as he dropped Izuku's bag to the ground. No, I didn't. You fell. Kikin, your hands were on my shoulders. You shook me until I couldn't hold on. You pushed. Izuku was interrupted by an explosion near his face. Shut up. I didn't push you. You fell on your own because you're a stupid, clumsy Deku. You don't even have a bruise on you. He seemed angry, but Izuku could see the fear bubbling in his eyes. He didn't want Izuku to tell anyone. Izuku could ruin his life. It's your call, sweetie. Don't let him intimidate you. Nana advised him. Holding him from behind. Izuku took comfort in her presence and sighed. Okay, Kikin. I fell on my own. Like that, Izuku grabbed his bag and set off to the steps again, leaving Bakugo behind. That's it? Bakugo's voice fell flat. What else do you want from me? Izuku paused, turning to look at Bakugo. You have a quirk. Like Auntie Inko. So. Bakugo stared at him for a second more before something changed. With a hiss, the boy turned and started walking the opposite way, spitting curses. Whatever. You're still just a stupid Deku. This doesn't mean you can get into UA. Don't even try it. I'll blow your face off. I swear. Sure. Izuku turned back to the stairs and took them 2 at a time. Nana. I'm here, Izuku. I can't believe it. You have a quirk. She seemed so giddy as she spoke. We have to tell your mother. Oh, we have to start training. So, it was me? It wasn't you. Izuku asked softly. I actually have a quirk. Nana's voice softened as she wrapped him in warmth. Izuku, my quirk never worked on anyone else. And I can't physically touch you. That was you. That was all you. Izuku sniffled, feeling tears well up in his eyes. I have a quirk. You do, Izuku. You do. His steps picked up as he started running home, tears in his eyes be damned. When he finally barged in the door, his mother was in the living room and jumped suddenly. Izuku. You scared baby, what's wrong? Her voice took on a worried tone as she made her way over. Mom, Izuku whimpered as he reached out for her, slumping down to his knees to hide his face in her stomach like he would when he was a child. Mom, I have a quirk. There was silence as his mother seemed to process what he had said. What? But the doctor said dash. I know. But Mom, I have one. I can float. Mom, I can float. The radical joy that overtook his mother's face as he said it was something he'd never forget. Can you show me, baby? Izuku paused. Could he? Could he use it on his own? Izuku closed his eyes and thought about the fall from before. How he wished Mom could use her power to save him. How it would feel to float like that again. He heard a gasp ring out and opened his eyes to see him floating a foot above normal, looking down at his mother. Oh, Izuku. This is amazing. You have your own quirk. Her eyes shined with tears and Izuku found himself falling to the ground with a thump. He was now looking up to his mom who was chuckling at him. You have to learn how to use this new quirk. Izuku found himself chuckling too. He couldn't wait to tell Shinsu. When he told his mother as such, she shooed him off to his bedroom to go change. Don't leave him waiting. Izuku didn't need to be told twice as he ran off. Smile stretching wide on his face. He had a quirk. Underscore. Izuku was late to their regular meeting at the beach, but not by much. Still, he was relieved to see that Shinsu was still there. The purple-haired boy looked up at him with worry. Izuku knew why, of course. Izuku was usually the first one to the beach. He was always punctual. What happened? Shinsu asked immediately. Izuku's smile was blinding as he came to a stop. Shinsu, I have a quirk. Shinsu's head jerked as if he has whiplash. What, Izuku? I know you do dash. No. Another one. Another quirk. Izuku tried to summon the feeling of weightlessness again and was rewarded with a little bit of height. Nothing like before with his mother, but enough to show Shinsu he was serious. As soon as he saw the other boy understood his meaning, he stopped his quirk. What he wasn't prepared for was the internal feeling as if his insides were turning inside out. His face turned pale, and that was the only warning he got before he collapsed to the side and started to heave up his meager breakfast. What was happening? Even when his stomach contents were outside of his body, he still felt the need to heave. Izuku, breath, just breath. Close your eyes. Nana cooed as he felt warmth all along his back. He could hear Shinsu talking hurriedly on the phone but tuned it out with Nana's help until his stomach was under control. And Nana? Izuku whimpered, curling into Nana's warmth. I'm here, hun. I'm here. What dash? Shinsu came into view now, slipping his phone into his pocket. I just called my foster parents. They said this is quirk exhaustion. A side effect of using your quirk too much. Especially a new one. You need to not try that again. Izuku had a smart remark on his tongue, but instead, he nodded and took a deep breath. Sorry. Didn't mean to worry you. I got excited. That's okay. I understand. I might have overreacted a little. but my foster parents know a lot about quirks and... Izuku froze as he let the words process. You told them I had a quirk? Yes, but I never told them what it was. I called and said you found out you could levitate and that you just started puking. They seemed to understand from there. There was true worry in Shinsu's eyes as he tried to convey how honest his intentions were. And Izuku realized he was worried Izuku would be mad at him. Izuku was his first friend after all. It made sense that he would be on guard when it came to things ruining that. Hey, it's okay, I know you wouldn't tell them important without asking. Thank you for being worried about me. Izuku mustered up a small smile and cringed at the taste in his mouth. Do you think we could skip cleanup today? I'm a little tired already and I'm starving. Nana's laugh chittered in his head as he stood up. Lunch sounds like a good idea, kiddo. The beach can wait another day. Nana agrees with me. Shinsu gave a small smile as he nodded. Yeah, we can do that. Ramen place. Please. Izuku said so emphatically that Shinsu let out a startled laugh. All right. Ramen it is. Come on. The pair headed off, the trash left for another day. Nana followed along behind them, a constant and caring presence. Like a guardian angel. The entrance exam is coming.
Okay, and that's what I forgot about that actually.
Chapter 7, Before the Entrance Exams. I can't help that I have nothing to do while I recover from my surgery, so I've just been writing chapters ahead of time. The end of junior high came quicker than Izuku could realize. He had thrown himself so deep into his hero training that he hadn't even spared a thought to the closing year. He made sure of course to study for his end-of-year exams, but besides that, the end of his junior high career came and went without a fuss. Bakugo had stopped harassing him so much, instead choosing to glare daggers at him every chance he got. Izuku wasn't quite sure the reasoning, but it made Nana happy to have him living a more peaceful life. That is not to say he wasn't almost overwhelmingly busy though. He was. What with training his new quirk, working out with Shinsu, preparing for the UA exams. It was hectic. By the time school ended for the summer, they had half the beach cleaned up, which was nice. However, it was more labor-intensive seeing as how the remaining trash was larger, dumped objects instead of soda cans and food wrappers. Izuku felt himself being pushed to his limit every day from the moment he woke up for his jog to the moment he fell into blissful sleep at night. His quirk was slow going. He found that it was a give and take. He could levitate high off the ground in a short burst, or he could hover for a longer period of time. But if he were ever to overextend his energy, his stomach would flip, causing him to lose any meal he had previously ingested. It was pretty frustrating. Shinsu seemed to have more on his plate than ever as well. His head had ducked in shame when he came up to Izuku and explained his need to cut back on cleanup days in favor of extra tutoring. Izuku felt honored as Shinsu explained his less than stellar grades due to his lack of effort during his time switching around foster care. If he wanted a chance at UA, he was going to have to step it up. The reveals hadn't stopped there either. It appeared that Shinsu's foster parents were both teachers at UA as well. He hadn't revealed who they were, but Izuku hadn't pushed him too hard. One of my foster parents wanted to just recommend me in. It's a different process and would have gotten me out of the physical exam, but I didn't want to take the easy way out. My other foster dad seemed proud of my choice. I know it sounds pretty stupid dash. Izuku was quick to correct him. Not at all. You want to get into UA by yourself. Having your parents get you in would feel like cheating, and I can't imagine what kind of trouble you would have with the other students if they found out. Trust me, I can understand completely. Shinsu relaxed a little, slumping against the tailgate of the truck. Thanks, for understanding. I mean, I know I'm kind of leaving you short-handed with this whole mess. He motioned to the mounds of trash. But I need to study more than just heroics if I want to pass any kind of exam to get into UA. Don't worry. I'm fine with it. Izuku smiled brightly. Nana and I have been taking a little bit of time off too for quirk training. So it seems our roles are reversed. Shinsu chuckled and nudged Izuku's shoulder. That must be wild, you know? Thinking you have no quirk and then suddenly finding you have two in 1 year. Understatement of the century. Do you think your bond had anything to do with awakening your quirk? Shinsu asked suddenly, passing along a bottle of water from his bag. Izuku took it and sipped some as he thought. I've thought about it. My mom's quirk is telekinesis based. Nana had a floating quirk as well. But since they're so similar, there really isn't a way to definitively tell. The way I see it, there's no telling what happened. What do you mean? Shinsu asked, now thoroughly confused. Biting his lip, Izuku paused. Well, from the beginning, my bond with Nana could have been a dormant quirk of my own, or it could have been a reaction from the bond Nana had with the real world. I can't imagine why it would revive me without a scratch though. So I'm left to believe that way my quirk. Izuku spared a look at Shinsu, who was listening with rapt attention. Nana had a floating quirk when she was alive, but I can't see how our bond would give me that quirk. She can only pass through people. Even me. It also wouldn't make sense seeing as All Might only appear to have one quirk and not 8. If the quirk came from the bond, All Might should have been able to tap into it. So, I'm left to believe that my floating ability came from a mutation of my mom's quirk. An awakening of sorts. Shinsu looked like he wanted to say something, but thought better of it. Izuku knew what it was though. But if it's always been dormant inside of me, there's the question of why it didn't stop me from falling off a building. Izuku sighed. I really don't know. That's rough. Yeah, as their break ended, Izuku couldn't help but dwell on his quirks. It all seemed like a matter of circumstance. Nana seemed just as confused as he did on the whole matter. And if that wasn't complicating enough, the note from All Might was practically burning a hole in his backpack. The man wanted to speak to him. Probably to apologize. But Izuku knew he would have to do some explaining as well. Nana? He asked in his head. He had gotten a lot better at nonverbal communication with her, which made asking for advice in public easier. Yes, sweetie. Nana asked cheerfully as he swept a mangled hunk of metal into the bed of the truck. What do you think I should do about All Might? There was a pause. I don't want to influence your decision. I know, but I need guidance. I don't want to see him, but I know part of that is just childish anger and I can't hold on to that forever. He's extended the olive branch. I think you have your answer already, hun. Izuku groaned heavily, much to Shinsu's amusement. I hate it when she's right. No, you don't. I highly doubt that, Midoriya. They were both right. Underscore. Izuku hated the fact that he was sneaking out. But he needed to talk to All Might and there was simply no time left in his day to squeeze in a meeting. So that only left at night. Besides, he would be with All Might. The chances of something bad happening to him were minuscule. All he did was leave a folded note under the windshield wiper of the truck. Meet me here at 11 p.m. tonight. The note was straight to the point. And if the man stuck to his word of emptying the truck bed every day, there was no way he wouldn't see it. So, Izuku crawled out of his window and ran all the way to the beach as soon as he heard his mom go into her own room for the night. Remember, Izuku. You tell him only as much as you want to. You don't have to tell him everything. Nana comforted him as he paused right before the beach. Izuku could see the tall lanky blonde staring out at the water's edge and his heart skipped a beat. I can do this. Yes, you can. Yes, he could. Slowly, Izuku walked up to the white truck, his hands tucked into his jacket pocket. It may have been summer but the sun was gone, leaving little warmth. especially so close to the water. Hi, Izuku said as soon as he was within earshot. All Might's eyes snapped over to him and a weak smile overtook his face. Hey, kid. Izuku inched as close as he felt comfortable, which was just out of arm's reach of the man. Of course, he knew All Might wouldn't hurt him, but he was on edge. You got my note? I did. There was silence. And it was awkward. Finally, Izuku had enough and spoke quickly. Why did you say that to me? All Might needed no clarification, it seemed, as his head sunk low. I was angry. I didn't do anything to you, Izuku said with hurt clear in his voice. You were my hero. Was he going to cry? Izuku felt the tears well up and he cursed his eye sockets. Now wasn't the time for tears. He needed answers. All Might seemed physically struck by those words as a shaking hand came up to rub over his own face. I was angry with myself. Since this, his hand motioned to where Izuku knew layers of scar tissue remained. I haven't been able to perform at my peak best as All Might. And that day was worse because I had been chasing that villain for hours and still couldn't catch him until it attacked you. Back in my prime before this, I wouldn't have broken a sweat. And I was just the unlucky person you decided to lash out at. Izuku sniffled, feeling Nana curl around him. He sent her thankful thoughts because he really needed the hug right then. Yes. I'm sorry, Midoriya. I really am. And I know that there's no way those words can erase what happened on that rooftop, but I mean it. You jumped off the roof. All Might looked at him once more and Izuku could see the haunted look in his eyes. You jumped off the roof after I said those things to you and just walked away like I didn't just ruin your life. Izuku felt like he owed a little explanation. To be fair, it wasn't just you. I was having a pretty bad day. That wasn't the first time that afternoon I stood on top of a building. He meant it as a dry humor kind of a joke, but if possible All Might looked even more upset. Kid, I was the adult. There's no excuse for my behavior. I should know better. I used to be quirkless too, you know. That was a shock. Izuku thought that was going into the situation with all the facts, but there was something else to throw him off. What? I used to be quirkless. Until I was gifted a quirk that could be passed down from person to person because my mentor saw the potential of a great hero inside me. And if she could see me now, I know she would regret her decision. I could never regret my choice, Toshinori, Nana spoke with a heated determination. Never. Izuku walked closer then until he could lean against the tailgate beside All Might. I don't think that's true. You've saved thousands of lives. People look up to you. You're the #1 hero. The symbol of peace. And I couldn't save you. I'm not that important. All Might and Nana both spoke up with ironclad determination laced in their voices. Yes, you are. Everybody is important. Every life matters. Izuku froze, looking down at his shoes. I'm sorry. I should be saying that. You already have. Still. Izuku cleared his voice as he spoke. Well, I've been finding a lot of reasons to keep living since I was given a second chance. So, if I can forgive you, can you forgive yourself? All Might's gaze faltered. Kid, I don't think I can ever forgive myself. He needs time, sweetie. Forgiveness is hard to process. Especially if we don't think we deserve it. Nana told him wisely. Izuku sighed. He knew that, of course. But it sucked hearing it. Hey, kid. You know that quirk I was telling you about? All Might said as the silence stretched on. Yeah. I want to give it to you. Wait, what? That wasn't part of this plan. Izuku had no plan for that. He never even considered being offered a quirk. Especially now that he had two equally mysterious ones to boot. I know it's a lot to take in for the moment, All Might said, raising his hands calmly. So give it thought. But I know you have the potential to become a great hero. And I want to help you achieve that goal. Izuku felt like a rug had been ripped out from under him. His first instinct was to reject it. He didn't need a flashy quirk to be a good hero. He wanted to get into UA on his own merit. And All Might didn't even know about his quirks. How could he make such a big choice without knowing anything about Izuku? I can't give it some time. Here's my number. Notes taped on windows are fun and all, but this should be kept between us, alright? Now I think it's late and you've had an exciting night. So let's get you home, alright? Izuku was already composing the longest text he had ever sent in his life in his head as he accepted the number from All Might and allowed himself to be led away from the beach in the direction of his own home. I appreciate the offer. I really do. It would be an honor. But I have to say, I don't want your quirk. Maybe not ever, but especially for right now. I want to get into UA by myself and I can't do that if I rely on your strength. I'm training and working on my own. Please, can we save talk about you giving me your quirk until after the entrance exams? Izuku typed it all up as soon as he crawled into his window, leaving no time for second guessing and sending it. After doing so, he turned his phone off and tried to go to sleep, but even Nana's gentle warmth couldn't lull him to sleep after the nightly chat he just had.
Okay, so I know. Okay, so he definitely talked about the quirk, but it's, I know if we get it earlier than I wanted it to be, then I know when it's gonna happen though, because I know when is like after the USJ attack. That's when I know we're having it. That just takes some time.
Chapter 8, Exam 1. The day of the written exam came quicker than Izuku could ever anticipate. He had decided to forego his beach cleanup that day to make sure he got plenty of rest so as not to fail the test. His alarm woke him for the first time in almost a year and he rushed to get ready even though he had plenty of time. As he brushed his teeth and hair, Nana did her part by reviewing his flashcards with him, much to her amusement. They were all spread out on his desk and Izuku did his best to memorize every single one. He couldn't even go over them with Shinsu, seeing as how the other boy would be in the testing center before all of them as his foster parents were UA teachers. They did, however, exchange a few texts wishing each other good luck the night before. And All Might had even wished him luck as well. They had reached a mutual understanding of sorts after their talk on the beach. Izuku would consider accepting All Might's quirk, but only after getting into UA on his own merit. It was like the talk he had with Shinsu about recommendations. Honey, it's going to be okay. You're a great student. I've read your writing from your notebooks, you'll do great. She praised as he laced up his shoes. He would need to get a new pair soon, seeing as how his feet were quickly outgrowing them. Must have been compensating for his growth spurt somehow. Izuku was now eye level with Shinsu, much to their surprise. Luckily, his mother had the idea to get his second semester uniform a size bigger than he needed. With her adjustments and temporary stitches until he grew into it, it had lasted him the entire way. I hope you're right. Going downstairs, Izuku saw his mother was already awake and making breakfast. There you are. I thought I was going to have to come to wake you up. Inko Midori yakued to him as she filled up a glass with juice. Sit. Eat. You need all your energy for your exam today. Izuku did so with a happy smile, seeing how his mother tried so hard to accommodate him, but still showed she cared. He looked down at his smiley face, eggs and toast, and could help but laugh. Thanks, Mom. She sat down across from him with her own plate and dug in with the same enthusiasm. Are you nervous, Izuku? Izuku hummed before washing down his toast with juice. Very. I've been studying as much as possible, but I still feel like I'm forgetting things. You aren't, kiddo. We've been over every inch of your notes 1,000 times. Just breathe. Inko's face softened. I know you can do this. I believe in you. You're one of the smartest kids in your class. After their meal, Inko brushed crumbs off of his uniform and walked him to the door. You don't want to be late. You have everything you need? She asked, wringing her hands. Yes, ma'am. In my bag. Most of the materials will be given to us by the test proctors though. Izuku assured as he slipped his phone into his pocket. I have to go, bye mom. I'll call you after, okay? His mom waved him goodbye as he headed down the street, her excitement visible on her face. You can do this, sweetie. I love you. I love you too. _____. The walk was longer than the one to his old junior high, but it gave Izuku time to think about the test more despite Nana's groans. All too soon, however, he was facing UA High School. A place he hoped he would be attending soon. The entrance was wide and towered over him as he stood there, other students in various other uniforms milling in around him. It was bigger than he ever thought it would be. He was speechless. Out of the way, Shidedeku. Came a gruff voice behind him. Izuku barely had time to turn before he was face to face with Bakugo, who looked every bit as angry as before. Izuku jumped out of his way, holding his hands up in surrender, only for the ashen blonde to walk right by without so much as a second glance. It was surreal. Whoa, is that the kid who fought a villain and won all by himself? Someone observed further in the building. Oh yeah. They say he blew the villain apart. Seriously hardcore. Right? I wouldn't want to be on his bad side. The gossiping whispers followed Bakugo as he walked into the orientation room, and Izuku stayed back to make sure the boy was really gone. Izuku, are you alright? Nana asked worriedly as Izuku continued to stand there. Why yet? Sorry, I guess he isn't willing to make a scene when there could be UA teachers around. Izuku took a deep breath as he turned to finally walk into the building. This is it? Of course, that had to be the moment he tripped over his own shoe and started to fall face first into the concrete. But he extended a hand out quickly, activating just a portion of his quirk to halt his fall. That was when he felt a light tap on his shoulder and the concrete went from stationary to shrinking from sight as he started to float higher than he had intended. Wadash! He deactivated his quirk quickly, afraid of overdoing it, only to realize he was still floating in mid-air. I'm so sorry. A girl's voice said quickly, and the hand on his shoulder grew tighter, holding him in place. I saw you falling and I didn't think to ask. I didn't know. Here, let me help you. She said quickly, pulling him down so his feet touched the ground, and then suddenly he felt his gravity returning. Looking over to the girl, he saw her nervously fidgeting with her hands. Oh. I'm all right. Thank you for helping me, even if it wasn't needed. We must have similar quirks. He offered with an awkward laugh. Must be. I've never met anyone with a similar quirk to me before. Her eyes widened in excitement. What's your quirk? Mine's zero gravity. For obvious reasons. She leaned in close and Izuku felt his face heat up. Well, it's a levitation quirk. I haven't really named it yet. But I guess seeing as how it reacted with your quirk, it lowers my own gravitational pull like yours does, and when they mixed it made me float like I was made of helium. He muttered. The girl's eyes widened as he explained. That's so neat. I can't really use my quirk on myself or else I get nauseated. It's like we're opposites. Well, mine makes me nauseated too, but it is cool to meet someone with a similar quirk. My name is Dash. Alright? We need to all head inside as the exam is just about to start. You two, stop loitering and go inside before you miss your exam. A navy-haired boy came out of nowhere, waving his hand around at the two of them, causing them to step apart. It seemed the interruption reminded the girl of why they were there and she jumped. Oh right. I should get going. Maybe we'll see each other during the practical exam. Good luck. She called out as she took off through the entrance. You too. Get inside. The boy ordered sternly, and Izuku hurried to comply. He was wearing a middle school uniform, but his tone made him seem like he was some kind of security guard. Either way, Izuku ran into the building and found his testing room quickly. He was soon swept away with all the instructions and prep given by their proctor, not someone Izuku recognized, but a hero nonetheless. Good luck, Izuku. I'll be silent while you work, but I'm cheering for you. Nana told him, patting his back gently. Izuku took a deep breath in and held it for a second before letting it out. His hand was somehow steady as he grabbed his pencil and opened the test to the first question. Underscore. Izuku wasn't the first one finished. But he wasn't the last one finished either. He hadn't felt rushed to complete his answers towards the end. Instead, he took his booklet and stood to hand it to the proctor. The woman flipped through it quickly to make sure he had his name printed on it appropriately before adding it to the stack beside her. Good job. Grab your bag and head out the door. There will be people handing out cards with information for your practical exam. They will guide you from there. The woman smiled kindly at him before he turned away to follow her instructions. After getting his card, he was ushered into a lecture hall and told to find the seat that matched his examinee number. Thankfully, it didn't take long. However, he quickly realized he was seated next to Bakugo. Said blonde scoffed as he sat down and pulled his bag under the table. About time you showed up. I figured you had given up and ran home crying. Bakugo said maliciously. Don't listen to him, Izuku. He's just trying to get under your skin. Izuku instead ignored Bakugo and turned to the front as more students filed in. By the growl let out by Bakugo, he could tell the boy didn't much appreciate that. But there wasn't anything he could do in a lecture hall full of other students and potential UA teachers. It was another 30 minutes before the last students filed in and the lights were dimmed. Pro Hero Present Mike marched up onto the stage giving an intro much like he would on his talk show, and Izuku felt his fanboy heart flutter. It was such an honor to potentially be taught by pro heroes. Especially ones like Present Mike. Said hero went on to explain the practical exam rules and such, but Izuku was surprised to hear how they were almost identical to the ones online with no extra information. So it seemed like there was something about the test that they were hiding. Something they didn't want to affect the students' performances. And Izuku had a feeling it had something to do with the missing information on the handout the navy-haired boy from earlier pointed out. Additionally, you with the unkempt hair. He announced, pointing directly at Izuku. You've been muttering this entire time. Stop that. If you can't bother to take this seriously, leave. You're distracting the rest of us. Beside him, Bakugo snickered and Izuku ducked his head in shame. He wasn't aware that he was mumbling. And even more so, he had no idea he was being a distraction. Still, the tall boy's icy glare paired with the small bursts of laughter around Izuku made him clam up, covering his own mouth so as not to start mumbling again. Don't listen to him, Izuku. You have the same right as everyone else to be here. This kid has rubbed me the wrong way from this morning at the gate. I don't know what middle school he went to, but his superiority is laughable. Nana wrapped her arms around Izuku's hunched frame as if shielding him from the entire room. It was impossible, but it made him feel better. As Present Mike started explaining the fourth villain type, Izuku couldn't help but feel like there was still something being left out. A useless villain used as a hurdle? Then why was it listed on the printout as a villain? It made no sense. Still, there wasn't much time to dwell on it as the meeting came to a close and they were instructed to leave in an orderly fashion. Izuku assumed it was to keep them from hanging around and discussing the material of the written test. But even so, he didn't hang around anyway. He only had a small section of the beach left to clean and Shinsu was supposed to meet him there right after they left the building. It was the final stretch needed before his training would be complete and he couldn't wait. Already people had started coming to the beach. Metal detectors in hands combing through the sand pulling out bits of jagged metal so people could actually use it when it was finished. Izuku was excited to see it. Even more so than he was when he first started the project. It had started as a gift for Nana and had developed into a way to train himself for the struggles and trials of UA. Izuku knew that had he not tried, he would have had no chance of succeeding in the exams. The clock was ticking. It was almost time for him to shine. To rise above everyone who ever pushed him down. To go plus ultra. It's almost time. Discord link, http URL. Chapter 9, Practical Exam. Shinsu and Izuku arrived at the beach, as usual, geared up and ready to tackle the last bit of trash left on the beach. It was mostly mindless work as they had gotten into a rhythm of sorts over the weeks spent cleaning. There were mostly just heavy appliances and other discarded objects and they took turns breaking them down and loading them onto the truck. Looking over to Shinsu, Izuku could see just how far along their progress had come. Shinsu had gained muscles to his arms and thighs almost as much as Izuku. They were both carrying their own trash to the truck and loading as per usual, which was a large contrast to before when it took the pair of them moving one object at a time. "How did you think you did on the exam?" Izuku asked as he ripped apart an old dresser with little strain. Shinsu's look tensed before he shrugged. "There were things I didn't know. But I think I passed at least." "I'm sure you did great. Your extra studying with your foster dad must have paid off some," Izuku said optimistically. He was relieved when Shinsu passed him a small smile. "Yeah, I'm probably just worrying too much. It's in the past anyway." The sun was just about to set when they tossed the final scraps of waste into the dumpster behind the old lady's store. Despite their obvious improvements, they were both sweaty and panting. They had finally done it. 10 months, but Dagaba Beach was finally clean for public use. Regardless of how easy it would be to have the trash build up again, they both were proud of each other. It seemed Nana was as well as she brushed against both of their hands. Shinsu, of course, shivered hard at the contact but didn't startle as he would have months ago. "It looks beautiful, boys. You did an amazing job," she praised. "Nana loves it," Izuku relayed to Shinsu, which caused both of them to light up. "But it is getting late. Your parents will get worried. And there are the practical exams in only a day." Izuku felt his anxiety spike at just the mention. "I know, Han, but you have to get all the rest you can." "What is she saying?" Shinsu asked, and Izuku figured after all the time they had spent together, the purple-haired boy had gotten used to Izuku's emotional tics when it came to talking to Nana. "Ah, she says we need all the rest we can for the practice exams." Izuku explained and winced sympathetically at the look that passed over Shinsu's face. Still, Nana was right. Both boys said their goodbyes and parted ways, knowing that the next time they would see each other would be at the practical entrance exam. Luckily, while Bakugo was assigned to a different training ground because he went to the same junior high as Izuku, Shinsu was homeschooled. In just over 24 hours, they would meet up in front of Battle Center B. _____. 10 minutes didn't sound like a long time to determine the futures of hundreds of students. But in a place like UA, you had to be the best from the very beginning. Izuku knew that from his hero studies. Heroes had to make large and bold debut to even become a blip on the radar. 3 things would almost guarantee you a successful future as a hero: graduating UA, interning at a well-known hero agency, and your grand debut. Without those, it would be like digging a hole with a plastic spoon. Not impossible, but extremely unlikely. The written exam was only one facet of the exam. Everyone knew the practical exam was what really made people stand out. So Izuku knew he had to do his best. His morning started out much like the morning of the written exam, this time, with 100 times more anxiety than before. He choked down as much as he could stomach from his plate, which really wasn't much. His mother wished him luck at the door. Nana kept up a constant flow of praise as his shaky legs took him back to UA and in front of Battle Center B. There were so many other students there that Izuku couldn't seem to find Shinsu. And of course, he had left his phone at home so as not to damage it, so there was no way he could send a text. Being alone surrounded by a sea of applicants that didn't even look nervous affected Izuku more than he would have liked to admit. Breath, kiddo. Just breath. You can do this. I know you can. You've trained for this. Nana told him, filling him with warmth. Izuku nodded, but couldn't really say much else as his hands shook even in their clenched positions by his sides. I can go find Shinsu if you want. So you can wish each other luck beforehand. Please. Izuku agreed immediately. He needed a familiar face. Someone to tell him he wasn't the only one losing his mind in weight. Okay. I'll be right back. It'll be okay, sweetie. Izuku could feel her moving away into the crowd, leaving behind a bone-deep chill that was oddly grounding in this situation. It gave him something else to focus on rather than panicking. Taking a deep breath, Izuku looked around to hopefully find Shinsu on his own as well. Quickly, he realized there was no way to see through the sea of people unless he pushed through them, and that was the last thing on his list. However, hope bloomed in his chest as he saw the brunette girl from the written exam. The one with a similar quirk to him. He hadn't gotten her name, but she looked almost as nervous as him. Maybe he could ease her stress as well as his own by wishing her luck, he thought as he started to make his way over to her. A large hand clamped on Izuku's shoulder, causing him to flinch as he jerked around to see who it was. He shivered minutely, feeling his panic rise within as he saw the navy-haired student from before. From the look on his face, Izuku could see that he didn't mean to wish him any kind of luck. He meant business. She looks like she's focusing on the trials ahead, the boy said, and it took Izuku an embarrassingly long time to realize he meant the brunette from earlier. What are you going to do? Distract her and ruin her chances to succeed? Dread sunk into Izuku's core as he jerked away and shook his head. And no. That's not what I was doing at all. What was this guy's problem? Why was he singling Izuku out so much? Could he tell how much Izuku was worrying? Was this part of his scheme to psych Izuku out? A paranoia-filled part of Izuku conjured up the idea that Bakugo had somehow put him up to it. But the more rational side of Izuku knew that was impossible. Bakugo couldn't bribe the student, he looked too official, so he must have gone to a private school, which eliminated his need for money. And there was no way Bakugo could intimidate him. Not when he looked to mean just as much business as Bakugo's smoky palms. Oh, is that the kid that almost bit it right before the written exams? Huh? Yeah, it looks like it. But apparently he caught himself using his quirk right when a girl tried to help him. Their quirks combined almost sent him floating into space. Whoa, really? That's wild. Yeah, but he looks like he's about to vomit. Gross. Izuku heard the remarks from the other students and it completely cut off every excuse he was about to make to the student in front of him. Instead, he ducked his head low as he used to when Bakugo would push him into the walls in junior high. Arms staying by his side, making it clear he wouldn't fight back. Of course, Izuku knew this kid wouldn't hit him. Not when there were so many witnesses. Maybe not ever, but it always lessened Bakugo's rage when he made it clear he wouldn't fight back. Maybe the other kid would leave him alone. Izuku! Nana shouted at the same time as Izuku heard. Oh, it's you. Several things happened at once. Warmth bloomed inside Izuku, causing him to grip his chest right as the boy in front of him shivered harshly. All while the girl from the day before ran over excitedly. I'm sorry I came as fast as I felt your panic. Shinsu is near the gate, he says he wants to be the first in, but he wishes you luck. Are you alright? Did he hurt you? Nana spoke and Izuku could feel her checking him over for any kind of injuries. I am fine, Izuku said out loud, which unknowingly answered a question the brunette from earlier asked as she gave him a worried look. Are you sure? You look like you're about to be sick. Did he do something to you? Her voice grew hard as she whipped around to glare at the navy-haired boy. Said student seemed at loss for words as his mouth opened and closed. Wami. I didn't do anything to him. I was trying to keep him from harassing you. Harass me? Why would he do that? You saw us talking yesterday, he was probably just trying to say hello. I don't know who you are, but you obviously are a student like the rest of us, so I don't know what makes you think you have the right to police us. The student's face grew pale as he was getting verbally eviscerated by the girl, and Izuku couldn't help but feel guilty. Wait, it's okay. I'm fine. Really, there's nothing to worry about. Izuku interrupted quickly, standing between the angry girl and the navy-haired boy. Her rant stopped mid-sentence as she looked up at Izuku intensely. Are you sure? Yeah. I promise. Come on, let's go talk somewhere else. Izuku offered, eager to de-escalate the situation. The pair headed off to the side away from prying eyes. I like her. She's got a fiery personality. Nana observed, making Izuku blush. SHH. Don't embarrass me. He hissed in his head, causing Nana to laugh. As they stopped at their new destination, Izuku held out his hand to shake. Hi, I'm Midoriya Izuku. I never did get your name before. The girl's eyes widened before she smiled and grabbed his hand. Oh. My name is Yurarika Okako. It's nice to have a name for a face. She wilted a little, looking down at her feet. Sorry for stepping in before. I didn't mean to make it seem like I didn't think you could handle it. It's just, you looked really upset and then you just froze. I thought he was using some kind of quirk on you. Oh. Thank you for trying to help me. He wasn't using a quirk, but I'm glad you stepped in. He was pretty intense. Izuku and Yurarika shared a small laugh as they turned to the gate. The exam should be starting soon, she said. Good luck with the exam. Izuku said immediately. I hope we both pass and maybe we could be in the same class together. That would be fun. 2 gravity quirks in the same class. Right? Let's start. A voice projected from the top of the gate. Get moving. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run, 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 listeners. You're wasting airtime here. All at once, the gate opened and the students started pouring in. Izuku felt dread inside as he realized they were both at the back and trailing behind. If they didn't make up ground soon, there would be no villains left. Yurarika, activate your quirk on yourself, I'm going to throw you ahead of everyone. He suddenly shouted. The brunette's eyes widened. But what about you? I have a plan. Just worry about yourself. Her eyes flashed brightly before determination set into place. Placing her hand on her chest, she nodded and started to float. Hurry. I can't do this for long. Izuku nodded and gently grabbed her arm. Turning quickly on his feet, he winded up, creating momentum. When he felt he had enough, he activated his own quirk, sending them flying ahead and over the crowd like a discus. Their landing was rough, but they were ahead. Recovering quickly, they silently agreed to split up from there. Good luck, Midoriya. Good luck, Yurarika. Izuku yelled out as he took off down a random street. The whole thing was set up like a city. Nana. Can you look ahead and find a group of villains away from the others? He asked, barely breaking a sweat. If his plan was correct, a large percentage of the students would flood the middle while a smaller but still sizable group would fan out around the edges. That left a little bit of room in between where Izuku knew plenty of villains would reside. There's a 2-pointer up ahead. It's facing the other way. I can slow it, but you need to take it down. Izuku nodded quickly as he rounded the corner and saw the villain she was talking about. It was bigger than Izuku expected, but all at once, he felt the heat within right as it started twitching, sparks shooting from its arms and neck. It was a quick maneuver, and with a little help from his levitation, he was able to get on top of it and rip its head off from the rest of its body. The heat inside him seemed to convert into energy, but as soon as the machine was disabled it faded and he tumbled to the ground. Come on. No time to waste. There's two more, both 1 point, around the corner. Hurry. Someone's closing in as well. Izuku charged off towards her directions and seemed to meet up in the middle of a small street. To his left and right were the robots, and the other student had just entered the street. He hadn't recognized them, but they seemed to have a mutation quirk that turned their head into a black bird. I get left, you get right. Izuku shouted as he sprinted off to his left. Right. They answered, and Izuku sighed happily at the fact that there was no argument. Izuku dispatched the 1-pointer much easier than the 2-pointer. He grabbed a piece of rebar laying on the ground from the debris and stabbed it into the center of the robot as it twitched and sparked under Nana's hold. He turned around only to see the other student ripping the robot apart with a sentient shadow figure. Whoa. Izuku, focus. There's not much time. The closest villain is 2 blocks away to the right. Once more he took off running. It was weird seeing as how he wasn't winded at all even after the fast pace of running and fighting so much. It had to have been something with Nana's hold on the robots while he destroyed them. However, Izuku stopped as soon as he heard a scream emitting from the block he was on. It was only a split-second choice that leads him off his path of the villain to follow the sound of the scream. Hello. Is there someone here? He called out. Help. I'm here. A female voice yelled out. Izuku turned and saw a large pile of rubble and paled. Are you under there? Why, yes. Please help. I used up all my strength. I can't get out. She sounded close to panicking. I'm really claustrophobic. Please help me. What followed was one of the hardest lifts Izuku had ever attempted. Lifting a chunk of concrete from the top of the pile made his arms quiver, but he grit his teeth and kept going. HNNA. He cried as he flipped the concrete off to the side, exposing the top. Looking down into the hole, he saw a girl covered in dust. He leaned over and offered his hand to her, which she took gratefully. As he pulled her out, she took a moment to hug him tightly. Thank you. I heard people running by before, but they didn't want to help me. I think I'm done. I'm going to head to the gate and quit. But thank you for helping me. Izuku couldn't convince her to stay as she slid down the large pile of rubble and started running away. You see, Izuku. That's what a hero is. Helping people who need it. Nana cheered for him as he took off once more. Someone took down the villain you were going to, but turn right up ahead and there's a 3-pointer. This continued on. Izuku forced himself not to think about how long it had been or how many villains he had taken down. All he thought about was his next move. There were a few other students who seemed to either get stuck or bite off more than they could chew. It was these moments that Izuku took time off his search for villains to help them out. A few thanked him, but some just shrugged him off and continued on with their exam. He didn't blame them. They were just trying to pass like he was. Suddenly, the ground began to shake and shudder like an earthquake, and Izuku froze before he took off towards it. He didn't know why, but it was as if his body was reacting before he had a chance to think. But when he finally arrived at what was making such a ruckus, he almost wished he had run in the opposite way. There were dust and debris blowing everywhere as a larger robot, larger than some of the buildings, loomed over them. At once, everyone nearby started to run. Even the navy-haired kid from before. Izuku was about to turn and run as well before he heard it. Ow! Izuku froze. he recognized that voice. Looking back, he saw the dust settle, exposing Eureka stuck under the concrete. Her face was contorted in pain and Izuku noticed it was a far cry from her happy smile earlier in the day. The ground trembled once more as the robot charged ahead. Looking down, he could see the fear in Eureka's eyes, and that was all it took for Izuku to act. "Nana, hold it!" Izuku shouted as he ran to Eureka. All at once, he felt the warmth bloom inside him. But this time, it was like fire, burning him from the inside as sparks rained down from the robot. It twitched and shuddered as it tried to fight whatever it was holding it in place, but Izuku didn't care. He got his arms under the concrete and started trying to lift it forcefully. Grunting and groaning in the effort, he knew it was bigger than anything he had ever lifted, even the concrete from before. This was too much. But he couldn't stop, and the robot was inching closer despite its shorting out. "Nana! More power! Izuku, I don't know if you can dash. Do it!" The fire intensified and he yelled out as he finally managed to lift the concrete. Something warm dripped down his face, but he didn't care. Eureka scrambled out from under the concrete and tried to run. "Midoriya, come on!" Izuku wasn't listening. He dropped the concrete at once and stared up at the giant robot as it finally seemed to stop moving. A smile formed on his face and he barely noticed that the fire seemed to stop. He felt no pain, no heat, no cold. And then the world grew black. Underscore. Even having experienced it the first time, Izuku was surprised to see himself looking down at his own body. The warmth he had felt on his face, it seemed, was blood. His blood. It had dripped from both his nostrils and the corners of his eyes. Even his ears, it seemed. "Izuku." Izuku turned to see Nana standing off to the side. She was wearing the same costume he had seen her in before. It took him a second to realize what had just happened. Oh. Izuku, oh my dash!" The woman ran over and wrapped her arms around him tightly. "What happened? I know that's not important. You need to go back," she said even as her hold grew tighter. Izuku felt his eyes close as he leaned into her arms, wrapping his own around her waist. She was warm. Much like she was when she touched him before, but this time he felt it on her and not inside himself. "Nana. Are you listening? You need to go back before they notice your body." He wanted to stay here though. For a moment longer at least. Where it was peaceful and he felt no pain. Locked in time it seemed, as everything around them moved in a snail's pace. "You can't. Izuku, listen to me. You can't die here. You need to go back." There were tears in Nana's eyes as she looked down at him. He hadn't remembered when he opened his eyes. "I'm dead?" Oh, Izuku's brain seemed to be rebooting quicker now. He wasn't alive. He needed to get back. How did he get back last time? Nana seemed to understand as she carried him back over to his body and crouched down. She held Izuku in her lap and grabbed onto his hand. "We have to do it together, I think. Like this." As she said it, Izuku felt strength return to his hand and he reached out to his body right as Eureka turned and saw it collapsed on the ground. All at once, there was a flash of light and suddenly Izuku was sitting up with a gasp. The world was silent in the wake of the robot, and Izuku turned to Eureka who was reaching for him. Deftly, he reached out as well and grabbed her hand. As they both stood, he saw her wince as she stepped on her bad foot and he didn't think twice about lifting her up to carry. "Time's you up." Present Mike announced with a flourish as a siren went off. "Whoa, that kid looks like something out of a horror movie. But he's walking like there's not a scratch on him. Didn't you say he had a floating quirk like her?" "Yeah, why?" "Then he must have moved that slab of concrete all on his own." "Oh, you're right. Wow. That's so awesome. Very nice. Good work all around." Izuku snapped his head over at the new lady's voice rather than tune into the babble of the students. "You're heroes in my eyes, every one of you." The woman was small and dressed in a lab coat. She had a grandmotherly appearance and a doting attitude about her as she pulled out some gummies and handed them to the nearby students. "Is there anyone hurt?" she asked. Izuku nodded and walked up to her. "Yes, ma'am. Eureka here is pretty injured. I think her leg is broken." "Oh my. You look pretty bashed up yourself," the old woman said. "No. I'm fine. Can you help her?" Izuku asked quickly, trying not to jostle Eureka. The old lady looked like she didn't believe him, but nodded. "Very well, let me see her." Izuku crouched down so the old woman was level with her, and his eyes widened as she kissed Eureka on the cheek. "This is Recovery Girl. I recognize her from Toshinori's school days. Her quirk is a healing quirk based on kisses," Nana informed with a snicker. Izuku watched as Eureka's leg flashed in green light before straightening out. "There we go. Good as new." Izuku hesitantly put Eureka down and they watched as she was able to put pressure on the previously broken leg with ease. "Now your turn, Sonny," the old woman said, grabbing Izuku by the ear and pressing a kiss to his dirty cheek. There was no flash of green light at all and this seemed to confuse her. There really is nothing wrong with you. Then where did all that blood come from?" "I'm fine, ma'am. Like I said. I think there are some students back there that need more help than me." "I'll go wash up." Izuku excused himself, walking away from both girls as he followed the crowd of people to the entrance gate. He thought he was off scot-free as he exited, only to see Shinsu there, waiting for him. As soon as "There's no way you're getting out of this one." Nana Chapter 10, Aftermath. Izuku couldn't even get a word out before he was grabbed by the front of his shirt and was being dragged towards a small building. "Wa Shinsu, what are you dash?" Shinsu kicked open the door, startling a student who seemed to be washing their hands. Apparently this was a bathroom of some sort. "Hey," Shinsu called to the boy who jerked upon their entry. "Wa dash. Leave." The student's face grew blank as they started to walk to the door without even turning the water off. This was the first time Izuku had ever seen Shinsu's quirk in action and it was pretty scary. He was dragged to the counter as Shinsu grabbed a fistful of paper towels. "What happened?" Shinsu demanded rather than asked as he wet the paper towels and started wiping the barely dried blood off Izuku's face. Izuku paused as he realized what was happening. Shinsu was worried about him. "Shinsu, I'm okay dash." "I know you are. Recovery Girl wouldn't have let you leave if you weren't. Now tell me what happened." Shinsu was frustrated as he threw red-soaked paper towels to the side. Izuku could smell the metallic scent of his blood on his face and tried not to look into the mirror. I was taking the exam like normal and then the zero-pointer came out of nowhere." Izuku started as he licked his lips, cringing at the taste of blood. "There was a girl, the one from the written exam I told you about. She was stuck. Nana, she can do something to the robots. It shorts them out and gives me a power boost. But even with her holding the zero-pointer, I couldn't lift the concrete off Eureka. You overdid it, didn't you?" Shinsu suddenly paused his scrubbing of Izuku's face, a barely there tremble in his hands and arms. Izuku stopped. He knew he overdid it. He died again. But still, he didn't want to admit it to Shinsu. I'm fine dash. No, you aren't. Shinsu shouted, suddenly throwing the balled up paper towel into the still running sink. Izuku, you were bleeding heavily out of your nose, eyes, and ears. You had a brain hemorrhage. Izuku's confusion must have been obvious as Shinsu went on to explain, clamping his hands on Izuku's shoulders tightly. The blood vessels in your brain exploded. Why you died. Again. Shinsu closed his eyes tightly as he shook. Lowering his head, he kept his hands on Izuku's shoulders. You died. But I'm okay, Shinsu. Look at me, there isn't a dash. A single scratch on you. I know. Izuku wilted, all the fight leaving his body as Shinsu slumped against him. That does mean you don't worry the hell out of me. Why dash? Because he cares about you, Izuku. Because he cares. Nana answered immediately. But, I'm fine. Izuku protested. It doesn't matter if you're fine or not. You almost weren't. Izuku honestly didn't know how to process that information. I'm sorry. Shinsu scoffed against his chest but didn't say anything else for a long time. When he finally moved, he took several steps back and pointed to the running faucet. Wash your face. If I keep using paper towels, we'll never get out of here. Izuku did as he said, bending his head over the sink and scrubbing the blood from his face. It took a while and stained the cuff of his tracksuit, but eventually, Izuku didn't look like something out of a horror movie and Shinsu deemed him presentable for the outside world once more. The pair walked out to see a large gathering of students right outside the opened gate like before the exam. This time instead of looking excited, they all looked tired and worn out as Present Mike gave a speech. You all did great out there. Your results will be mailed to you along with your acceptance letter if you made the cut. You all fought hard. Don't be afraid to be proud of yourself for getting this far. He cheered with a wide smile. You're all free to go. Izuku turned to Shinsu as students started filing out. I'm starving, do you want to go to the ramen shop? Shinsu spared him an unimpressed look before it fell away with a sigh. Yeah. Let me just ask my foster dads. I'll meet you there in a few hours after I've showered. I'm buying, Izuku said, hoping to brighten up Shinsu's mood, succeeding when he smiled slightly. I know you are. _____. A week later and Izuku was waiting on the living room couch full of anxiety. He could understand the need to take so long given the fact that there were so many applicants, but still. Even Shinsu hadn't been given his letter yet. But that was given the fact that his foster parents could show him favoritism. So they decided to give him his letter when Izuku got his. With all the time waiting though, Izuku was able to figure a rough estimate of how many points he had gotten during the physical exam. He figured he had at least 20 combat points. He wasn't sure if there were fractions of points given to those who take down villains as a group, which happened a couple of times. All in all, he thought he did well for having only 10 minutes. 10 minutes to fight meant on average he took down 2 villains every minute, which Izuku thought was nice considering all the times he stopped to help other test takers. I'm sure you did great, Nana told him once more as she felt him dwelling. What was your exam like? Izuku asked suddenly. Nana paused. Well, it wasn't nearly as physically based. We were put into simulated combat situations and we had to determine the best way to complete them. It tested our quick thinking skills and our plan making. That didn't really help Izuku, but it was interesting to think about nonetheless. Izuku! Izuku! His mother shouted as she slipped and slid into the living room. Wah mom, what's wrong? Izuku asked, jumping up and catching his mother before she could face plant into the ground. L letter. Izuku, your letter is here. She said, holding the white envelope with red wax seal up. Izuku paled as he took the letter with shaking hands. It's finally here. His mother nodded excitedly, pushing him towards his room for some privacy. He barely had the awareness to grab his phone as he went, texting Shinsu and telling him the news so he could be given his letter as well. It was as he was shut into his room that Izuku really felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. This was it. This was the moment that determined his future. He could be holding a UA acceptance letter or a kind yet dismissing letter that told him he didn't make it. Come on, Izuku. You should open it. Nana urged as he slowly sat down at his desk. Your mother is pacing a rut into the ground outside your door. It was those words that finally gave him the strength to break the seal on the letter, causing something to clatter onto his desk. All at once, a projection started to play. Hello. I'm here as a projection now. All Might's voice shouted out, causing Izuku to flinch harshly. Always dramatic. Nana snickered. I wonder what he's doing in a UA projection. Izuku had the same question, but he stayed quiet as he leaned closer to the image. As if he would hear it better. It's taken forever to send these out, but with great power comes a great amount of paperwork. All Might spoke before coughing harshly into his fist. Izuku felt bad for him as he recovered quickly. My apologies. I feel bad for him if they made him do every single acceptance video. Nana sighed. The truth is, I didn't come to the city just to fight villains. I've also accepted a teaching position right here at UA. A hand came into the frame seeming to urge All Might on, and he sobered up significantly. Right? Watch this video. Next came a video showing Eureka walking up to present Mike, seemingly begging him to give Izuku her points for saving her. He would have had more points if he hadn't stopped to save me. She reasoned, and Izuku shook his head. Why would he just leave her there? Even if the robot was only meant as a scare tactic, he wouldn't have left her alone. Luckily, Present Mike told her there was no need for her to give him her points, and the video cut off as All Might began speaking again. You passed the written exam with a decent score, but you only amassed 23 combat points. I'm sure you know that it isn't enough to pass the practical exam. Sorry. All at once, Izuku felt his world crash. He didn't pass. After all the work he put into his training? He died out there and he still didn't pass. Bakugo's words started haunting his thoughts. Was he really just a Deku? Izuku choked on a sob. What was he supposed to do now? Izuku, honey. Keep watching. It isn't over yet. Nana urged as she wrapped her arms around him from behind. Izuku flinched as the video kept playing with no regard to the tears running down his cheeks. Fortunately, there were other factors. You have a quirk, yes. But it's your actions that inspire others and put you above all the rest. You see, the practical exam wasn't graded on combat alone. How could a hero course reject someone who is committed to saving others regardless of the consequences to himself? That is what makes a hero, right? The image flickered again, this time showing a clip of grayed out face holding up paddles of numbers. So we have rescue points. A panel of judges watches and award points for heroic acts outside of hunting villains. And you, Midoriya Izuku, amassed a grand total of 55 rescue points. A scoreboard appeared on the screen with only 10 names. Each name was numbered according to their rank, and Izuku was amazed to see his name at the very top. He was number 1. His brain quickly catalogued the scores in his head, spotting Kiken in second place with only 1 point less. Eureka was fourth behind someone named Kirishima. Even Shinsu was on the board at number 10. It was low, but it was on the board. Like Izuku, he had more rescue points than combat points. You and Eureka both passed the exam. All Might said as his hand extended out towards the camera. Welcome, Izuku. You are now part of the Hero Academia. The image froze on All Might's smiling face, and Izuku finally stopped to rub his sleeve against his tears. Sweetie, you made it? I knew you would. I knew you'd get the rescue points you needed. Why you knew? Izuku stuttered, suddenly feeling slightly betrayed. And you didn't tell me. It wouldn't have been fair, Nana explained, wrapping him in warmth. UA keeps the rescue points a secret for a reason. It's to keep heroic acts true. If everyone knew what rescue points were, they wouldn't give it their all. I made sure you had a fair chance just like every other student. Izuku could understand her logic, but it still stung to know she knew all along that he would get in. But there was time to worry about that later. Instead, Izuku walked to his door and pulled it open to see his mother pacing the floor as Nana said. As soon as she saw his face she seemed to assume the worst and her eyes dimmed. Oh, Izuku, I'm sorry dash. I got in. What dash? Mom, I got into UA. He announced, falling into her arms like he did the day he found out he had another quirk. I got in. He cried into her sweater, holding her tightly as she pet his hair. Oh, my baby. I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. I just knew you could. She praised, holding him close. Underscore. It turned out, there was a lot of preparation involved in enrolling in UA. There was a lot of prep that left very little time for Izuku to hang out with Shinsu, but he comforted himself with the idea that they would be attending UA together. Shinsu had texted him almost right after Izuku had released his death grip on his mother's sweater, telling him the good news. To Midoriya, I don't think we'll be in the same class. Barely passed the written exam even with my tutoring. They'll put me in remedial classes. To Shinsu, oh that's a bummer. But, we'll still see each other around. We can even walk to school together if you would like. To Midoriya, maybe. But odds are I'll have to get up early anyway to hitch a ride with my foster dad's teacher stuff. To Shinsu, oh. To Midoriya, don't worry. We'll still make time on the weekends, okay. To Shinsu, right? I look forward to it. There was a lot of paperwork to do. And even more so in Izuku's case, as he had yet to register his own quirk. And seeing as how he was a teen instead of a 4-year-old, he was able to name it himself. He spent every second he could thinking of names, but deep down he knew it had to be something versatile so that both his quirks would fit under it. Of course, he wasn't going to mention his first quirk, but it would be nice to have a name for it too. What was your quirk name, Nana? Izuku asked as he pored over the paperwork. Well, it was called Float. Which doesn't help my case. Izuku deflated as he marked Nana's quirk off his checklist. Levitate, no. Fly high, no. Sky hop, no. I don't know what to name it. What is something that applies to both levitating and spirits? Boundaries. You know. Because you can transcend the gravitational boundaries and reach past the spiritual ones as well. Nana suggested offhandedly. Suddenly, it clicked in Izuku's head as he started to scribble on the registration form. The word boundless was left behind as he dropped his pen aside. Oh. I like it. Unique but not crazy. With his quirk registered, he was able to focus on his UA enrollment paperwork, which was just as tiresome. He had to gather his transcripts from his junior high, his medical records, and his own personal files and fax them all to the school board. On top of that, he had to design the hero outfit that apparently would be made for him by the school. And not only did he have to do his, but he also promised Shinsu he would design his as well. He spent many days locked in his room as balled-up pieces of paper filled up his trash can with every rejected idea. They were either too flashy, too similar to Nana's, or completely inhibited his quirk by adding too much weight. Finally, Nana had to step in and make him look through several old sketchbooks filled with terrible hero drawings and All Might fan art. But inside, he found what he was looking for. An old concept he had drawn when he was so sure he would be a hero with Kiken. It was heavily inspired by All Might, but with a few tweaks and a change in the color palette, he made it look as unique as his quirk name while still relating to Nana. he was glad he changed the bunny ears at the last moment for a white hood imitating Nana's cape. Otherwise, he would have been embarrassed to even be seen at the UA. While he was at it, he designed Shinsu's as well, sending pics back and forth as they tweaked it until it looked perfect. It was only as Izuku was sending the final design off that he got the idea for his own costume. Erasing the smiling mask, he replaced it with a yellow geometrically patterned mask that slightly imitated Eraserhead. He had gotten the idea from Shinsu as Shinsu had asked for a similar capture weapon to the underground hero. Both designs dealt with and sent it. Izuku was finally satisfied with his work and confident everything was done. He was finally ready for UA.
Okay, can you remind me, please, like? Wait a minute. Shares have been nearing I might do more and very much, and like, the increments for this is me randomized mostly, if I'm bored mostly.